Yes. Well, welcome to day 2. You will hear a little bit about developmental biology.
Okay, ane taring ngazo kiberik begi. Lobjong dimutin naya cherwa.
So I hope that your review this morning went well and that you have some entries in your journal about our discussion yesterday. I look forward to hearing those.
ane taring kyarjong narwa shokwa. Didi yakbu chungyo verewa yo. Sinyamdo chene ane kazingi lobchen da dewa yogi sindri yakbu kyo verewa yo. Ane sindri dele ya. Ane gelagi nyendo shu yo shwa.
Do I have some volunteers to share journals?
ane sindri yang jago ne shenge da di yuwe tanglang yuwe. Sindri taran shokwa kyo de. Cindy Yewe. Cindy Yewe.
No, not today. Oh, they've been so wonderful these last several days.
Sorry?
I'm saying, I hope that we will find 2 volunteers. They have been so wonderful these last several days. Did they get time to work on them in the morning session today?
Yeah, we gave half an hour for the note, and then we asked after doing the note, if you finish doing it, then you can start doing the review by sharing the notes with partners.
Excellent. Okay.
Yeah. Cindy, lange yuwe, tangna yuwe. Oh yeah, we got one. We're trying to focus her note. Ale, phylogenetic.
Phylogenetic 동북이 리모트 디셔라.
Uh-huh.
디다 따다다 나치다 되어야면데 나랑기 삼수치리라 따다디 차기에나 메나 하면서 단다 리모디 소대펠교기 동부 디셔요.
Uh-huh.
디디라 다 간수기 메보딘소 다디 동부디라테니 간수기 메보 나마딘소 중린디 간수라 딘소교라. 다나신다 치수 다제 규라도아 라테니 가서 셈센다 규르네라 미다 차로이도 디나시 나랑기다 나우초라 삼다와이나 자와다 레당에 모여라다 레당에 모이기 다 레지다다 땅에 모 첼리 개발기 왕기 가서 단다 도리투 라이저라 나랑기디 동부디기 자와딜라 랭여샤 얄가딜라 도리투기라 얄가 툭소샤야 디딩가기 따따따 레당에모 다 레당에모 수수기 디민도기 왕기 땅다 그래 하마이라 녀와이다 딘도딘스키도이다 딘도 단다 간사 수수라야 제기 개발기라 제저집에 개발기 셈제 민도도이다 온디 충기도 상기도 그치나
So she has written about the phylogenetic tree that Kelsey discussed in the first class. So she said through this phylogenetic tree, we can trace our ancestors, like the common ancestors, that all different organisms that have evolved so far. And she mentioned about how due to the evolution, there's a diversity of organisms that we see today. And, she's not sure if this analogy is directly related to this scientific concept, but in terms of Buddhist philosophy or Buddhist context, so we believe in 6 realms in the cyclic existence, and that is all the very cause to give kind of born in these dreams is our afflictive emotions and karma, or the action that we did in previous lives. Basically, whether you will be born as a human, whether you will be born as a god, demigod, or other rest of the realms, it is due to these 2 things: the action and basically the action and the afflictive emotions that we have. So she's saying that she has kept these two, the karma and the afflictive emotion, as the ancestor, kind of ancestor, and six different dreams as the diversity that arised from these two causes. So she is basically kind of arranged in certain way that it resembles as the phylogenetic tree in terms of diversity, the evolution.
That's wonderful. I want to explain for Dr. Dietliff a little bit about this journal. On the right-hand side, when she holds it up, you are seeing a lesson from our science classes. And on the left-hand side, you're seeing a connection that the nun is making with some Buddhist teachings or lessons that she has had before she came to the class. And so I've tried to create some time and space here at the beginning of each lecture for the nuns to reflect upon the lesson and then to connect, like to write those reflections onto the left-hand side of the journal. And so that's exactly what you're seeing, one of the sorts of trees that she saw in the lesson with a tree that she created that came from her Buddhist philosophy teachings before. And so that is exactly what I was hoping she would do. And I'm delighted. That's so interesting. Also, the way that you were thinking about the two contributing streams, though the tree that you drew on the left-hand side with the two lines coming into it is different from the ones on the right, and the way that we often draw a common ancestor idea in science. But the use of trees to organize our thinking can be very powerful. I want to make an even another analogy too, but I'll let you translate all of that. I'm sorry.
Ta didi tanda ganzu dele ya gela sabish pedwa. Didi ganzu wangza gela tandarwa. Dindi ta tangi ganzu sindi ya di chik ye le ya ani chiri da yuen le ya an nang chu gi torup da jawa yo chene en sindi ya ge rest gela le ya pa deshe kyem kyen swa. Ta ne gela sheba jikla ya yusra.
So the analogy I want to make from our slides, sorry to click. Oh, here it is. The analogy I want to make is that this is a little bit like a tree as well. This is something from our slides yesterday, but does it not make you think a little bit of a tree as well? This one looks maybe upside down, like roots going down, but there is a common ancestor at the top, and then we are rolling down this space here, and the cells are making decisions as they come down to become different from one another. Do you see how that's like an upside down tree?
Ta dangi anlagi tanda sodi perimgi dongbo jitidwa. Ta di khasin gelagi korangi lopti chigyogi nanglogi delaya tsungja roji jila gora. Ta pesun roji shawi na digi rimo delaya shana digyores. Kense ina ya di peri di kharchiyelo di guding lo deyores. Kense kachin la na thangbo ganzu mebo chikpa roji da la gora. Ta di chungsa chik roji imban ye chashawa na gang le yebache. Ta ma phabi yondi eni tabung korangi chile liya shisha ne ta khangda chik khasa lewang se ju ko ra phage le ya ine so ta khangda khegyur gi namba chini so chile namba che and dana shi chile mandawa chaya da I mandawa chaya dinde ro jig le ya ani lam ro da masu na theni ru yores kense de di ane piri di goding lo yebe na ya dele ya chungja ro ste be na din didan yam da jarna dig yores.
So in this tree, the common ancestor for all the cells of the embryo is the fertilized egg, the zygote, here at the top. And then that cell has several options for its destiny, its fate, for what it will become. So it will go through cleavage and gastrulation when the cells start to move around and form layers. And ultimately, we will get differentiated cells here at the bottom that are different from one another. This cell had a different destiny, a different fate from this cell.
Ta di dirwa penchana di gyurim nangla late soina ani mebo chik se jura mebo khasa thumungi mebo se jua di chabung rik changwa gi thumu mebo di kharche yela na khamdu gi chabung jiwa kham karma debe chabung jiwa di chagyores ta dine ma ke yondi ta di gyurim sasan rogo ora tangbo di ani ngajo khamnyamdu jare che kese ani tanda saben rejol che di che dine tanda subgyur gi rimba jik dre yawa di dre che and then kaza tudum to berin basi ejik ten so then tama dele ya susu tabung susu ki talewang da kweba ya shisha ne any susu ki lamda masne tejin en tama dele ya ani chele mada chingejik da ani ibgyo da masne changma mada jik changejik tama dele ya ma pabyong and di nambali ya yudrogores yes.
So in your tree, there would be different contributing factors to what to where a person ends up or an organism ends up, right? Like the different contributing factors that you mentioned. And those would affect how the destiny of the person or the organism, what their destiny was, right?
Tana ngajugi kananda takandar gila na draw dik tu jiwa di so ri chu na lo ni khawa ke in se di gyu ke mangbo jigla ya ane gyu ke mangbo jigi shu ke te chini ane chagyo restaurant chagyo was yes.
But once you start thinking in the structures of trees, maybe there are many other things that you could draw trees for. What about a tree to describe the split in Buddhism between Mahayana and what is the other branch of Buddhism? The Mahayana and Nihayana, did I say that right?
Hinayana, sorry.
That would be a little bit like a tree, right? Once you show the history of the religion.
Tachidang dongbo toni piri tuya di nganzu mangbo jigla tuen tu go resra. Penachasha na nangchwe imba na tekchen da tekme yuwa. Di yundu ta nangchwe di dokdo jig che ani yang kora nangse yewali ya an tekchen da tekme slan chisong na ya ani dongbo ro nambaro jig charu res. Yes.
Or any other trees you can think of. Trees are a very powerful structure to apply to our thinking. If you need to memorize a lesson and you want to try to remember there are 4 main components to this lesson and 2 main components to this one and 3 main components to this one, you can help yourself to remember teachings that way as well.
당아저 동복이 나바 티에저 디디 항사야기 아니 학바도 직 망부지 장고요베나 와 롭센 로지 장고요나 낭세 예바 망부요베체 직 된제 직리야 안 낭세 이번에 강다데 춥자디 모스나 망부지 예베나 아니 딘조 마 끄바기 유림 단다 동복이 나발이야 치용데 수수 쳔바데야다 아니 롭체 치고 예베나 답데오 치네 치야리야 펜도 침보시라요레스 yes.
Okay, do I have one more volunteer? I would love to hear another journal.
신바지기 왜? 당란 신바지기 왜? 갈래양 야고네 년예 주도. So we have one nun who hasn't written any diagram, but she has notes. Is that okay?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah.
아니 가만 쉐칭 배. 아니 가만 등네 배. Okay, doktor lah sendiri. Ya, kayak mana? 차상 직도 말어. kerangi sindri gi chik nanglo ne su te ne chik la shana. 차상 고니 주고 드나 때 chik korgyo igira.
시장아 인데 디네 치당 디 가상게 가서 튀겨도 롭 다서
꺄르정 그래.
나랑 꺄르정 로로로 셈라 샤르교 디저 아니 추대지기 나가서 걔나 트리소사 아니 다랑 트리 아니 디 타타 타마데 데서 랍샤라 아니 디라 아니 가르체나 디 감 레디오 삼바라 아니 바라 접당데 디 뜻이라 디 디골라 바라 가르체나 콘소 당바치기라 주산이 아니 셈바디 조이 아니 지당 아니 바라 감마치기 슐라 아니 망보 용초그래 갸참 용초그래 나야 치기 바라 프라치 나 주사베 제라 아니 바라 잡네 아니 라와 잡네 나라 주주기 말 민도아 알아서라 어디야 가르체 낭제다 뜻 자오 저 소스라 가르체나라 이 나라 줘야 돼 고 단다다 바라 잡데다 치 차진다 간서 낭만이 나 안에 다 귤라니 시오라 나게 찾긴다 다 레왕리 차기라 어쨌든 단다 콘소이 시조다 가서 켈링 링겨다요 치 차진데 아니 가서 어디 더 삼성아 아마 줌에 두에 중전데 다 분전데 바라 잡고 중전데 파니는 뭐 통지 존나 되고
알레 어허 어야 주세 Oh yeah. So she has written the notes about during the revision hour that we did this morning, and she showed the picture of fertilization. When there one egg is being fertilized by the one sperm, then how the wall develops around the the egg, so that it cannot be fused by other sperms. And then she in terms of like when she brings analogy with the Buddhist context, she said that we also kind of, in the sense from Buddhist perspective, there are two factors in order to fuse two gametes. The first is the external factor, and the one is the internal factor that is considered to be the fate. Fate of the two sperms, in the sense the soul and everything. And then she also said that the external factor, the world develops around the egg in this scientific context, is the external factor, that is not, like, in the sense that blocks the other sperms, right? So which means the other other sperms do not have the fate basically to fuse with that particular egg. And then she also has, like, she didn't mention detail about the internal fate, but she also said there's another factor, which is the internal fate, or the fate. Internal factor, which is the fate to fuse together two gametes in order to form an organism.
Okay, so external might also include, let me see if I understand. Remember there were those, I think I said maybe 4 steps for fertilization. There was, you had to be able to find and bind each other. So the sperm and the egg had to come together physically, right? And then there was the blocking, so only one sperm could come inside. But so those perhaps are like your external fates. Do I understand correctly? Like you're describing external things that were important before. And then once it's inside, then there was the nuclei had to fuse, right? So maybe, is that what you mean when you say internal? I just want to make sure I understand.
아니 단다 디지기와 한서 깬들이야 니율렘바 치깬다 난기 깬세죠. 난기 깬세디 레왕 코랑으로
다 레왕
gelai karke je thidlana kyo chi ken se de nangi ken se de la ya tanda nga zo di kham karma duye de la gyurim shi ro ji ya thing de tang bo di kham karma ni ka thu go ya de che go ya che ni ba di ani phajo ne kham mar bo chik li ya khamar gi de sa wa na ani khamar shemba sama ka ya ji wa di ni di chi ken ro che shemba ni di nangi ken re le do mara
지당가 가서 karma이라
karma lewang le se dro
디레라네 주수 소에 말아 빼 차신 타잖아 참모 인상 아니 가서 단다 랍토기 말에 거기 디레다 원전 제도 말에 이나 레왕게 띠네 요래 가서나 김제 망보도 요라 시견데다 가서나 바라져야 되서 시견 차기래 가서나 태포 차에 김제나 되네 고 말라 주마 두와다 아니 가말 고랑이 바라져야 땅가 좀 지야 참마 시견 차이라.
Okay, so so I asked, and she said, these two are the external factors, but when we talked about internal factors, we are talking about not in terms of the structure of the gamete, but in terms of karma and fate. So she's saying that the other sperms cannot, in the sense, sperms do not have the fate and fuse with that particular egg. So
what is it?
Karma, she's saying internal fate. Internal factor is the karmic factor that is involved in this one.
Which one of the many possible is the one that actually does fuse?
Yes. And she also said it's very subtle in nature, so it's really difficult for us to specify this is the internal, factor, but it has the karma involved in this whole process.
Yes, you know what this is making me think of, and I'm not sure I understand completely yet, but it's making me think of a very old conversation that people have had about 2 words that sound very similar in English, nurture and nature. Do you know the Tibetan for this conflict between nurture or combination of nurture and nature?
Yeah, I think I'm not sure if this context is completely familiar with the Tibetan community, but I think I can kind of translate.
Yeah. So the way I was thinking about it is that there's the substantive, the part that is the actual sperm and egg and how they bind and physically which sperm binds. But there is also, and that would be nature, you know, what the
nature.
DNA is that come together.
Okay.
But then maybe she is trying to describe the non-substantive. You used the word subtle, the subtle. Perhaps she is trying to describe this idea about nurture, about what you experience. So there is the body part, and then there is the experience part, and they combine together to make us who we are, the individual destiny.
No. The didiro ani tanda nangi ken the chi ken se jo. Ondi di gela district color the kwaros le district kaku cha yosar ine ya. Karalas la na ta gela gi shembaji tadang shim gel ani kala kan de lo.
Di ta to je la sha dengan mangbola gini. Di na kan de na pu chadang de non bu da tanda kilai ani konga di chachu de tumbu jamne chedo di kopsa jane doya do. Ondi jo ngajo tende ala chuni na la shi sare non bu kor tar pu ne shi sare di shi sa de kebe je da chi kebe je da shi sa wa de ma ani di nang la gar je na shi bai ani sarje je ne thoma mar tu sho nga zui shi ba ni ani sanje sai khatula bombe to shi re.
Oh yeah. Ani gela travel chado jora ta gela khorang gi de khari gesla na chiri nanglali ta kangdar chizo shemba ta nang khala nobja gi chizo nanglali ya ta dang ro ni yores rangshin se ji ta ani pa chalong chung dang jora chalong se ji gi ta dang ni yung yores rangjong se di khari labe na tandang an jogi kham karma dresh do di che ta chalong se di kham karma dre wa ta khora ya chalong chwe di nyongwa jora nyongwa dele ya shishane tadang ji yungores chikchena ani kama gi nangi ken se di ani di nyongwa se di ingires ina ya ro ani gelala ya ta khalore ngazu gi le se da dindile ya ngi shue ra nangi ken se di le ya yanda lewang se ji gero ta kangdar kham karma khoran ya che ta dele ya namshi shue changma ya gyudal na thungu ro di de she ye ine gelali ya te chik kale kha cha insere she also I think the nun who shared about the note, she also mentioned about how the Buddhist texts also mentioned about the whole process of development, embryo development. I think that picture that you showed in one of the slides, I guess, different shapes at different stages. I think, and then and also she mentioned that there's explanation for body development as well as the soul development, the soul development from a very ordinary person till the person reaches the Buddhahood. How this develops too. She also said
that's really,
yeah.
Yeah, that's a very satisfying analogy to make. I'll have to think about that one. I will write about it. I am actually writing notes of all of your journal entries, and I will think more and reflect on that more, and how maybe we could bring that into the class to discuss. That is fascinating.
Ta ani kheran so ngi ani la kama gi tanda she di nangchue thoni she ben subu gi perim cham mai ba chik sembla ta khanda sheba se di mi kyuma ji gi sheba ne chene sangye gi sal ta komba ma tu gi pha tu tel ya gyo do nan cha sang ji yore la di pe yam sembu dos ra pe ning ji mu dos ngozar ki ji greshas ta di ani la kheran so gi khadu sindi ani khadu she bin na di dan dewa yu gallery ya sindi ya ja gallery ya lo ke ra ya ji gyo yore shas ra di yakushu chung songs. Yes.
So I think that there are both internal and external influences on the body's development and on the soul development. And it is a rich idea to consider. Internal and external influences on development.
Ta tanda lu gi chabe ta sem gi chabe law ra ta andar semliya khong peya jero ta dilia ani nangi kenda nigalia nangi kenda chi ken yonggu samgudos kense lu gi chabe lim ba nare ani semba ya di khara jeya jero ta kangdar sem kyumajing ne sangye gi khasalia madu gi pa to diparu gyurim delaya ani anjo nangi kenda chi ken niga yo jigreshas samgudos. Yes.
Okay, well, let us start in on talking a bit more about pattern development. So we were going through these steps here of fertilization and then cleaving and then gastrulating, right? And then we were going to start really building the details of the embryo. We were going to work on the pattern development and how a cell somewhere in the body of this embryo can sense where it is and what it should be doing next.
당고 있는 다 가시니 진행한 저 사비 유림 나오나리야 아니 짐바 망고 시대 임바스와 사비 데저치야 다나시 아니 단당아조 디 클리베지 세디 subgyur girimba dimba 아니 gastrulation 세 주름 주베림바 dimba 다 타마 디 카레샤 아니 줌싱기 개발치 켄세 따디디 그입기 차니 내다 네법기 네주딘조 간데시메 따초 때야다 아니 카조 가왈리야 차붕 리코랑코랑기 카조 가와르스 조에메다 아니 첼레 가레기 ngole 유르고에메딘조 페림디간리 양스테기인스 yes.
Yes, so it's near here that we stopped yesterday, and I held up my arm. Do you remember? And I said that the cells within my arm have different fates. They should build different structures depending where they are inside my arm.
아니 가신 gelagi 안신 라고도 스템베 예스와 nge lakbe di nanglolia ani chabunggi rig manda yores 다나신 chabunggi rig manda yoba kanji köbayang che ani köbada chileniga manda yongo yores lani to yes di keranzu tingidu bes.
So yes. There is a back to my hand and a front to my hand. There is the head end of my hand, which makes the thumb, and there is the pinky end of my hand that makes the little finger.
Tadi 지고지냥 gelagita pensachana casual 때베나 겹직당 듄지 용구르와 라과기 겹직다 듄체 아니 대봉초디 공 돌아 띵체 아니 데라칼은 주무친지디기 초디 아니 가조 워로 체결아 딱강다 카조네 때베나 딘데딘데리아 차봉 코랑코랑기 꿰바다 첼레 ngo로지 켈레지 용구르스 yes.
There is also a single bone here, then two bones, and then many bones. And in my leg, a single bone, then two bones, then many bones in my leg. So as I move from close to my body to far, there is also a change in the fates of the cells, the structure, what it should make.
Yeah. 아니 gelagi 깡바다 라바니가리 삼라당와이나. 켄세 디네 디포르리아 라그리 거저레 찍체. 켄세 깡지그레도와 디네 디포르리아 니 아니 주모 진주 상말리아 주바 망보도와. 켄세 디인두 다나시 깡바이네 디네 디포르리아 찍체 디마 니체 엔니 뭐아니마 망보도와. 디인두 gelagi 수부기 쳐네다 예사진이 타링살이야 조연두 아니 차봉 수수수수기 아니 레왕로드 마스네 마다마다 연구여레스 첼레 마다마다 연구여레스. 켄세 yes.
So I think I left us all with the question, how would a cell know where it was in the body structures of any organism, not just, in my arm, but even in a plant or any organism? How would a cell know what kind of cell it should become?
다 가서 얘네 가서 진짜디 죽dom게 아요인데 gelagi 지워직 당니 샤요스와 지워디 가르라면 속자 가네로진 바는 지신 옛날에 미 옛날에 심지 가네로진 바나 네 당로 여기 차봉된 적이 소소소소 질랭오 가레로지글이야 유르고 그랬어야 간데시 하고 그랬어야 지글이야 지워 당니 샤요스 켄세 당분이는 살롱 총연디 찍바르와 상모 오 찍바르라 다강다 질레기 라테네 케규 로고도와 디디 소설 사주 가와 로고에메세야 질레 가와라 지고 그랬어야디 간데시 하고 요나스야 지 지워시 당니 샤요스 켄세.
So one of the ways that cells know where they are in the body has to do with the gradient. We mentioned the gradient before when we were talking about the sperm and the egg coming together.
Okay. 다 차봉 소소기 수배 나올리야 차봉디 사주 가war려고 요메 나 수배 차시 가래로 지글려고 요메세디 치 가래라 라레네 타지기열라디 카르세세지 온다 사르세세지 온다 사라스 카우사라사리와 카우사라 사체리야 그레디언트세디 사체세디 사체리야 아니 시샤니 용거레스 사체세디 카생고마 아니 캄카르마 제조르기 규림디 당올리야 먼저 사체세지 야나 서시네 지글라소텐스 디 콜리야 아니 먼저 셰요레스 켄세.
This picture over here is a picture of the embryo of a fly, a small fly.
Ta di parishto di any drangbu chinjigi any drumsingi parires. Can say? Yes.
And if we look at what are the proteins that are being made, where different chemicals are inside this fly, we can see that some of them are not arranged equally across the whole fly. They have more at one end and less and less and less as we move towards the other end. So the fly is not the same everywhere. It has a different level of some of these chemicals at this end, higher than at this end.
Okay. Ta di peri del tebe na. Can say? Di peri del tebe na. Tanda ze kashi karche jorwa. Di any di cho de da di cho ni do and kebar shogures. Cho de ne rose te di cho chevana ani karche manguche ani dine parodi karche nyunga imbaji. Kanda cho chiglia karche mangujda. 아니 초 시엔들이야 같이 뉴뉴지 연구였어. 제기토네 때문에. 캐세. Yes.
So over 100 years ago, people began to experiment with this idea that there would be chemicals that were arranged at different amounts in different parts of the body. And they worked with this very small worm. This is a picture under a microscope of this little worm. It is so small, you can see it with your eyes, but it is very, very small.
당아주 미든지기라 칼리칼리 딱제 제 고조용디 캐세 냠십로 좀 나서는 제 고조용디 가린 냠시 지결라디 수베 딱 강달 살롱기 기름 나올려야 아니 수베기 차시에 가와리야 아니 제 가리 가르체 망아도 가기 가르체 용아도 세주라다 딜리야 심주치여레스와 다 디디 아니 단다 웜라 나한테라나 부르베 다 부랑라 다 부디르와 디 부친지지기 పరిచ여레스 디디 자동 치시월 따교레스와 디디 계란기 에네미기 갑도 통도리 이나야 자동 치시월라 따용디 다 치에 통구라 랑싱기라 디디디 차이게 디디갈리야 심주치인서 yes.
So this was 100 years ago. They did not know the names of the chemicals or what chemicals they were, but they had the idea perhaps the head had a lot of a head chemical in it. And that was making it, these cells know that they were near the head because they could feel there was a lot of that chemical. The tail did not have very much of that chemical. And so it could feel where it was in the body. So if there's lots, less, tiny amount, none. That would be a gradient of the chemical along the body. So lots of head, less, and then practically none at the tip of the tail.
다 데디 델레데베 나르와 다 당보데 원래 심주치용데 제 가래 이메스야 다 밍다 된저 하고 우요 말했어. 계세 이나야 콘서기 리바지 가래여라 리바지 가르당겨여라디 따벤시스나 델로 고드고도아 디부데 때나 디초달라 고드고도 디초달라 가마드고도아 다 델레 용이 다 강달 고드베기 다 땅야로기 제 저와 제기 가르체 망부 여버체 계세 디 제 가르체 망부 여위나 디 낭로리야 차봉 용에 된저 알레 땅 아주기 고드베레샤세지 하고야 로지 고쳐야지 다 디네마 용로치 디 델레 용이 고드베기 다 땅이기 제디 아니 용로 치니 타마델이야 ngamal레 디타 제 메교로지 디다 데왈레 용이 된저기 차봉 여베나 소소리야 다 믹스 다 로지 메 디타 nga마세 줍구 여 야나니 nga마기 초로 여버지 하고야 로지 용구여레스 캐세 yes.
So it's almost like a temperature, like this is hot, this is medium, this is cold. This is hot, lots of head, this is medium for the length of the body, and then it's cold at the tip.
다디디 펜시나 사랑이 나바로지 샤베나 벨제 사랑로 샤베나 디저 슈 차우체 디셜 차우체 엔디 디 사랑 용부체 아니 타마타마디 장무 요버도지 켄세 다나신 디 부디긴 골이 임바나 사랑 차우체 아니 수부기 디네마 차셰디 체베나 사랑 용부체 엔 타마타마 nga마델레디 사랑 슈 장무 요버도지 켄세 다 간다 체기 제기 가르쳐들다고들라 yes.
So what is useful about this worm is that the way it reproduces, we talked about different kinds of reproduction. This worm can reproduce asexually. It can rip itself in half. So it sticks down and then it rips itself in half, and the head grows a new tail, and the tail grows a new head.
따디디로와 디 부시도와 델레야 따제치에 유림랑레야 펜도 치시지 가리올라나 캡산 로즈마스네 페제지 가리올라나 디 아니 단다 캄 마제베토네 기베치다죠 캄델 세주 에섹슈얼 세주와 디 유림도네 아니 기베치도 유레스와 페네차샤웨나 먼저 디 부디 베시 tumbu니로 스타웨이나 따디디 콘조기 단다 컬러 카블링 난게 남바로실 샤도와 디 펜시나 디 tumbu타웨나 코랑기 고치 가서 땅가마 체사 되는 가마께 아니 고 체사 되는 고께 니버지 연구여스 캔세 따디디 가족이 단다 가생 것마다나시 카블링기 도디 가두이 tumbu타와나 돈에다 자네 니기와 어딘데도 넘버 직치네 코랑리야 디 연구여스 yes.
So they thought perhaps the way that this works is that this headpiece here can sense it's missing the tail, and because it has lots and lots of the head chemical, less, and then there's no tissue, right? And this one has very little of the chemical and more, and this end is different from this end. The way that the pieces are different, do you see the ends of the pieces are different? This end has almost none of the chemical. This end has a medium amount of the chemical. And so the ends of the worm can tell which end they are and what they should build. This end that has medium knows to build a head.
다디디 콘저기를 제지 가르게 열라나 가네로지레 삼교열서데 다디 갑샤당서 디 칠차당서웨나 다디디 디 부기 디 단다 딩아르자디 아니 부임비기 넘버 치셔라 당아주 디 차당요데 당보연데 차마당웨나 디강레양 고주베기 다로랭이 가사디 제디 항상 같이 망보여와 다 드네 기마스네 때베나 같이 디 딩점제 앵가말 때베나 제요마라 당아주 디 차당요디 가라하고 열라디 디 나올려야 아니 콘저기 강기 딘저기 가라하고 열라데 nga마디 체데와 즉 참여자 하고네 nga마께다 다나시 디 나올려야 가사디 메차로즈 때소나 디 초리야 제디 체메죠 델야 제 뉴뉴지요라다 디니 돌소와나 디나올려야 딩점지요라 디 인디 콘저기 델라 유니기 차봉 딘저기 콘저기 고드고요 하고 지는 고드베다 콘저기 nga마 드고요 하고 지네 아니 델리 유니디 nga마 드고요 하고 지 델라 요디 go to go hakojene any go danga mayanga goni kiyeji deshegegores kense yes.
Okay, I think I have another picture. No, maybe don't. Okay, of these worms. So they are sensing what they should build based on how much of these chemicals they feel around them in their environment, and they are building what is appropriate. So if you are at this end of this tissue or this end of the piece of worm, you can sense you have more of the head chemical around, and it instructs you. You follow those instructions to build a head. You can see it is building a tiny bit of a tiny head, okay? And if you are far away from the head and you have very little of that chemical, then you should build a tail. And so it built a tail. It was the appropriate behavior for that concentration.
따디디 찌고지게 당기 쉬워나시 따 고차이 마세 ngama 차이세 디 차봉된 저기 코랑코랑 주변에서 ngama 줍고 그러면 고 줍고 그래서 디 코랑게 타고려 여기 제기 갈젤이었다네 안타 제투이레스 켄세 tat pensation dele tat di tumbutangar wa di tumbutang di dinang lo ya to didang dingi durso na je kharche dele manga yora di indi tang anjung go dub go se ji koran su go dubegi ene color the kebaro di masone chasang ji yurim de dochen en go dub gores tanashin dele ya kharche dine ji sona nyongru nyongru ge de tang anjung ngama dub go se di ha kho chene en ngama dub gores kense je kharche le shishane yes.
So that is something naturally that worms do, but the researchers also tried cutting the worms in different ways, using a little razor blade to cut the worms in different ways, and even to put a little piece of the tail up against the head, put them right next to each other. So low concentration right up against high concentration, and to ask what will happen. And they actually heal together. And then they grow the tissue in between until they are the right distance apart.
Oh, okay.
Like if you do this as an experiment, instead of just watching the worm naturally rip itself in half, you can actually start to do little experiments with them. And researchers have done many different kinds of experiments now in the last 100 years with these worms, you can put the tail piece right up against the head and then watch what happens. They grow just the right amount of tissue until they are the right distance apart.
Okay. Ta di ro rang chung ki thoni yong de chik chagres. Ta thanda pa lo ya ngi nang lo chunje chene di gi rik den zole ya ta khanda di bu de le ya simju bang bu chi yores ro. Khonjo gi khar chi yel din go di tup ngama di tup ani nyam da shawe na di poro gi chashe je mare woni pham len chene go da ngama chi ku jar wa na khar chi do ta yong di khonjo gi go da ngama chi ku jar yong di kopsu khoni jar che khorani rang sing gi thu ya chene ina ya thu ya chawe je le ya ani subu gi ring che ro da ma so ne nar chene 다 강다르 고디 제기 카르체 망부 요세직다 nga마디 카르체 뉴뉴 요세지바 디 바르리아 아니 코라니 타링 로체네 수부기 링체지 랑싱기 딜라야 차봉 페게 로체네 아니 콘소 줍두요레스 켄세 yes.
So welcome, Jillian. I think we have another neuroscience teacher who's come to join us.
Oh yeah. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. 가 엉즈세리 gelase 바지글레세라 Jillian.
So we are talking today about gradients and the idea of how they might help pattern the embryo. So this first pattern example that I gave you, it goes from the head to the tail of the worm or the body axis. But now I want to talk about another one.
Okay. 다 단다바도 베르지 당고 베르지 샤교스도와 원데디 당기 패턴 세디 꿰바르달로 꿰바디 가네 가로로 고니 죽바도 고니 nga마야 너 고니 죽마 바도 루게레스 켄세 따겔라 셴바직 라긴 스퀘바 셴바직 yes.
So this is the one that I showed you on a limb, and you can see that the pinky finger is different from the middle fingers, are different from the thumb. So now I'm looking at a gradient that goes like this, from the pinky to the thumb, or from the thumb to the pinky.
딱 sorry. 꿰바기로와 꿰바기 따당 셴바지 가리열라베나 켄세 당기 가생 시원나시 먼저 델리야 주고 춘지지와 주고 충슈디다 태봉이 뒤체 나나시 간다 디주 든주 주기다 든주 돌송와이나 만다레도아스 켄세 디인디 꿰바디 디초네 디바토 야나 디네 와바토 딱 간다 띵다 와로지라네 내가 브링라 간다 디네 초네 디바지다 디네 초네 디바체지 가져지 연구열했어 와 yes.
So in this picture down here, the scientists have done an experiment. They have cut a little piece of tissue and moved it around, transplanted a small piece of tissue inside the embryo. They did this in a chicken embryo. So these were easier to work with. They were just worms in a dish. But for this experiment, they had to actually make a little window in the chicken egg and go inside with small tools and cut the small pieces in the chicken embryo's limb.
Okay. Ta di dwa. Di rangzong nang la li dwa. Di ta je che ti sig le la dwa. Ta cheri ba jogi 심주 셴바직 che yores dwa. 심주 셴바직 가르치 라면나 단당한 조 지루다 지루. 집주 된제 nang la ya 아니 풍줍 티슈 라나 풍줍 임바. 풍줍 니니 직사제 찍네래. 차세 찍네래 엔 차세 셴바직리야 깨체네 캐세 네티식레 하요르시 이 딘조치야 디 카두이나 따제 칸나라야 따 칸다 추제 망고 표제 당신의 용거에 직차결에 삽사치고래 근데 건설기 같이라네 단다 치킨기 다당한다 칼사 집주여라 집주기 락바요와 락바레이래다 락바라르래 디 데기 엔 디기 차세 찍네 아니 풍줍레체네 차세 셴바직리야 풍줍디 파깨체네 가르충고도 때브레스와 yes.
So some embryos are very easy to do experiments in the laboratory, like the fly embryo is a very easy one because it just lives out open for us to be able to study. Some are harder, like the chicken inside of the egg. You'll have to open a little window and work inside the egg to keep the baby alive. And then some of them are even harder, like the mouse. The mouse is a very hard one for us to study because you have to take it out of the mother and it cannot live outside of the mother. When after you do the experiment, it's very hard to keep it alive.
당한저 당시 가르치면은 카시 카프치 카시 렐로요레스 켄세 펜치나 디 정복이 단다 둠싱 로진바나 펠렐로요레스 코란 따라 도샤베나 아니 아주 차장 치도 그레스 야 단다 집주 로스테베나 집주 공하니 마기 공네 아주 따지 치고 그레스 디인디 페겔리아 가르치기에는 섭사치진 페겔리아 소라 꽤 마요야 치르와 가르치는 섭사진 치고 그레스와 다나신 펜치나 깔레 가수 찍디 찌지레스 지지들 다제 지용데 지지디베 아메 코베나 마트 용데 코란 손에 지도고 말이 세상 코리우지 주인신에 델리아 심주 치야다 든지 용고요레스 든지 따깔라 강다 땅지 치야 빼깔라 가고요레스 와 카시 렐로 카시 가고요레스 yes.
Okay, in this experiment, they actually are thinking about two gradients. Do you see that there is a gradient from dark green to lighter, lighter, lighter green? There is also a gradient from dark blue to lighter, lighter, lighter blue. These colors are showing us a chemical that is at different concentrations in different parts of this little baby limb.
Okay. That did karela na chicken jigi lakbadwa. Lakbasu tangboyini chicken lanoda. Chibjujigi lakbatangboyini sutsari yungura. Diridalo. Di indu tai kerangi yakbate songana keranzugi paridinala tongumari, peje tongumari. Ina yang di paridil te songana. Di chone tewe ina. Di chone tewe ina. Manzoli ya karchegi kebar jigure. Di chondo tangbo ngombuche. Dene this chik ngoshe di nyongru doeshtua. Chikchaswa. Wane tewe ina. Janguru stue. 아니 디 이네야 장셰디 용로 야 용디 용로 되시도아 레드면데 디 인디 디 가르팅gel데 디 제 나가니기 가르체 케바 켄세 델레테베나 제 장구디 가르체 망아체 아니 야야야 로디 제 장구디 가르체 용로로야 델레테베나 디 촌이테베나 제 곰부디 가르체 망아체 마마마 용디 제 곰부디 가르체 용로로야 다 간자 디디 수 단다 집주디기 아니 락바 당본이 차론 조용디 Digi chashi manda ze manda karse yovastingures. Can say yes.
Okay, so what the researchers have done is they have figured that near the pinky finger, there would be a lot of this green chemical. It's colored green here. And there would be a lot of it down here and less, and the least of it up here.
디초디 간간조 단다 지우딘저이나 데르모요르와 데르모요디 kopsu 데르모기 나올리야 주고 치종 캐봐요라 총슈 디 페리디 때베나 디 제 장고시면데 제 장고초여사시도 디디 아니 주고 총슈여사사지드레스 켄세 주고 총슈여사 야야야야 용디 태봉사자지리 말에 디디 제 장고디 가르체디 용실 차워 디스베 어야 보세요 데르모기 나올리야 주고 치종 로와 여베체 아니 가르체 정고디 안 주고 통사되니 링사버 딱 한데 태봉 받을 줘야기 저 가져인 바체 아니 가르체디 용로 치 타마 태봉 주베기 사제 될래 손디 용디 제 정고디 가르체 용슈 차요레스 this way yes.
Okay, so that's the situation at the bottom here, and as the baby limb is growing out, there is a lot of green here and less here, and that helps to tell the cells what they should do. They should build a pinky finger, the middle, like less and less up towards the thumb here. But in this case, this is the natural situation. This is the experiment. In this experiment, they took a little piece of tissue from down at the bottom, and they added it to another limb. So this limb has its own natural little piece of tissue here, but they now added a new piece up at the top. So now it has two. It has its natural piece and it has the new piece.
So this is of the same chicken, right?
Yeah, they do this they leave one limb growing normally and then they do the experiment on the other limb.
Oh, okay. 다디 콘저기다 당기 슈바낭시 델리아 제 장고시도아 제 장고디 가르체디 와네치니야 용로 타마디 강레서디 용로 베트코르메아 차르고라 디 가르다 당기열레디 아니 제 가사 장고 여사디기 다 가르당기열레디 아니 케랑기 주고 충슈디 춥고 그래서야지다 드네야 아니 주고디 림바 치네 춥베지어라 칸달 다디 제 장고기 가르체들 시샤네 에네 타지겨레스 켄세 다 콘저기 심주 가르치열레디 디 제정고 열사기 사주시도아 디네기 풍룹지키 아니 키치니 이게 초려요 풍룹 디네 키치니 이게 디 초려야 루버레스 죽버레스 켄세 다 가르쳐 열라데 디디 코라코라 이산에 데레 요나 랑중기 사자지와 얘네 양아저 가르쳐 열에 다지 치니 디네 렌치네 사주 셈바지를 깨르와 다 딘라 깨 용디 겁수 데레야 아니 티슈만선 티슈라데 퐁주브와 퐁주 당본연의 코랑기 차실이 여버다 디냠도 디간에 디네 트웨키니레 요델 루교지여레스 니차여레스 켄세 다 디디 심주디 가르치 망치야 건저 가르치라디 다 지우직래야 깡바니 용거와 그러와 데르모 페네샤나 디네 렘바이나 디네 렌치니 파조초델레 깨니 에네 따지 치기레스 건저 망치야지 켄세왜 예 데르모 가사 지우직래다 이나 데르모 이에네 렘바이나 이언레 루야 심주드네 치기레스 yes.
Okay, so if there is a chemical that is in high concentration, you will make a pinky. If I put extra of that chemical up at this end, what they discovered is that you will make another pinky. You will follow the instructions at high concentrations to make a pinky, and at low concentrations to make a thumb. And do you see that they got it's like a mirror image. Do you see that it's a mirror image? High concentration both sides. And the limb does the best it can to follow those instructions. The cells act as they believe they should and make two pinkies.
Oh, okay.
And then the thumbs in the middle. High concentration where my pinkies are now, and low concentration in the middle, because of this extra little piece that they put up at the top.
당한서 데네 퐁룹 지키니 네가 안샤스와 네 퐁룹 디낭라리야 제기 가르체 망쇼 가려라 당한서 주구 중앙이지와 디트베기 제디 여러와 가르체 여러와 다 디네야 델레여 용디 디 델레 디네 델레야 께 용웨 깝수 델레레 여위나야 디낭라리야 제 가려라 디응한조기 주구춘지니디 수에세긴 다트에기 제기 가르체 여러와 디치니 에닌 주구춘지니디 두구여레스 캔세 This way, 디낭라리야 제다디 요와 두구여 말에 다 강다 사지 요 여이네 캔세 디인디 딜이야 야 차별 지요 값수 아니 디초리야 딱 가르체 용사들라 가디나 가르쳐이래 대봉로도 차이도 라 가르체 망사들이야 아니 주 가르사 주 춘준이디 차이도 디인디 땅아서 디스 때베나 디니 라거달라 디단 디니 때베나 디 살롱 기름 당라리야 디단 디니 때베나 간조 시어 당라리야 파다 지는 주 인수 주 차교 낭시 차교레스 This way. Oh yeah. Yes.
Okay, so now I need you to try to imagine the whole body with these gradients going in all different directions, many different gradients, all helping the tissue in different parts of the body to know its identity.
당한저기 단기 제기 가르체시에 주와 사주 춘춘춘줄라 케바로다 다디 제기 가르체디 제 다메다 임바 강시 촉 아니 거 가살이야 아니 가르체기 나바토네 아니 결한기 가르서 풍어 수부야 차롱 총연디 아니 데네데네 두부고르세디 타제 치게바직 삼로코르치스 켄세 yes
So we now know that there is a chemical at high concentration here, less and less and less as you move towards the belly. A high concentration here, less and less and less as you move towards the tail. Okay, so there are gradients all over our body of different chemicals, many different ones that help the cells to know what they should become.
Okay. 다 벤치단 당아저 가라하고는 벤치시나래야 디 숙베기 강 되시도와 다 디디 델레야 제지에베나 디 제디 카르다 데고라 디초 두부고 그레세 다테체 디 제디 카르체 용로 디 초레레사디 애닝아저 포아 두베로지 딜 시샤베나 다나시 go drubegi dategi zedi karche dela mangbu yo chongza ta dine mama rodi karche de nyong ro chen tama dela yungi chapong de jogi lewan ro de masane karla na ngama tuye jigles kese di indi tanga zo sukbe nangli ya zegi karche ze khona gi rig mara gi karche yung go yores ina ya karche la shisha ne ani chapong gi keba kai drubgo me chashe kare drubgo me se dela ya ani taje gi pendo go yores yes.
Okay, so if I am a cell and I am born right here, I divide and I come into being right here. What would I do? Where would I be in the body? Well, I'm kind of close. Can you see my pointer? I'm kind of close to the head, but not at the very tip of the head, but still pretty high concentration of the head chemicals. I'm also a little bit closer to the back than to the belly. So that would help me know the level of the chemical right here has medium high of head and medium high of back. So these cells can tell that they are different than if I was a cell down here. If I was a cell over here, then I would have actually very low head chemical in me, very small amount. And I would have a very small amount of back chemical because I'm closer to the belly.
Okay. Ta pensation narwa. Delia di drumgi chabung dun zin bayna. Kense. Di cholia the nangi zuzu because di zusashtua. Delia yungi chabung di drumgi chabung de tevena. Koranlia zegi tone karche go to wegi chabungi counter go to wegi zejura di karche ya kalakanzabiwa. Rwa. Tanya wodoa. Danashi yap delia gela yablin pestanga. Yap drumgi tanda zegi yang karche kala kanzabiwa. Kense. Dinde nedanjilia Koryujina tembe kaza dinde devina Korangi aletanga di chashe di druberesha seji hakugres. Boswe. Danashi da di Koran da shembaji duajini chabunji durso and the Korani bad kora logores. Kachin lamena dela dingi chabunji imbayana go trupchungi counter datangi zedi karcheti hansaya shembura dela nyurwa. Danashi chipachia yab drubegi zedi yang nyurwa. The dela yangi chabundi karahagola and tanga chashe di drubegi ene ze kasa chabung resha seji counter zegi karcheki tone so kawal draw meda kare drubgo mede tacherugoyers. Can say yes.
Okay, now sometimes when babies are forming, there are mistakes made in these gradients, and I want to show you what can happen in that case. So this baby had, there is normally a gradient that goes from close to your body towards the tips of, so in the limb, it goes close to the body, high concentrations, less as you come out towards the tip. You can see these, like see the gradients drawn here, high concentration here, then less. There can also be a gradient that is high concentration at the tip and then less as you go closer to the body. So they are showing some of the concentrations here in this drawing.
나 아니 참섬 네 가르쳐도 축성와이나 캐세 제기 가르쳐도 축성와이나 아니 먼저 사람 그 기름 나올래야 아니 딱딱 마요인지 차요레스 캐세 다 데디 페네차샤와이나 데디 가래 먼저 디 가사 라고차야로 기름지래더라 라고 수살롱 중구라 데디 수백이 초초체 다 데디 파타타타라도래도 그래도 다 데디 펜세신나 당기 쉬워나시 Dine chone tewe na zejige na di zedi karche mangshi de deleche ani nyongro chine karche nyongshi de dele yongurwa danashin dine chone pate tadang jitewe na ya di chole ya zejige na di zedi karche dijo chola mangshi che ani subege chole ya chotto nyeri dudu ta nyeri dudu ani karche di nyongro ji yongures kense yes.
So normally the baby would make a hand only when the concentrations were correct for the hand to be far from the body. But this baby made the hand right next to the body.
나 남규 보고 윤대게 살롱 총다지 바이나 아니 간저기 제기 가르쳐리야 빠베 아니 디저철이야 가르쳐 망아 유디kop수 강다른 간저 타링르르르르르네 락바든데지 양타 링사지글이야 아니 차유레스 이네야 디 낭러리야 딱 강다 케바르 논리 죽셔치니 아니 수백이 Yes.
There can be some very serious disruptions if you have a disruption in the gradient from your back towards your belly, from your back to your front. So this is a picture of our spinal cord, and this is the back to the front of the spinal cord. And there are different chemicals and different identities for the cells based on that. So you can see there should be lots of this chemical, BMP, lots of it at the back, less as you go towards the front. And this one, a lot of this chemical here and SHH, lots of it at the front and less as you go to the back.
다양 초심바지 카레래 yapdı düğün kurwa. Rwa. Di karlan jungba기 yapdı düğün çayıyoruz. Di yap체 디디 두 계속해 다 yapne 때서 나 펜션나 델리양 아주 다 간다 제나가 직초양 체도 생각 천도로 당도 디 제릭 디 yapne yap려야 가르쳐 망부 슈체 아니 뒤에 소소소용데 가르쳐 용으로 줘야지. 그래서 다제 셴바지 ngombo지 츠요래 디 델이야 때문에 야 뒤엔델이야 가르쳐 망부체 아니 갸블 파파파로디 가르쳐 용으로 줘야지. 그래서 yes.
So remember that our spinal cord continues up to make our brain. And I guess we will hear more from Jillian and is it Dr. Heck or Dr. Dietliff? I'm sorry if I'm saying this
Just
wrong.
Dietliff.
Dr. Dietliff? Or Dietliff
Yeah,
is
Dietliff is my
your
first name. Yeah.
Forgive me. Yes, sorry, Dietliff. Okay, so Jillian and Dietliff, will you be teaching them in the next class about the nervous system?
Right.
Yes, sorry. 아니 따디르와 단다 간저기 융바디 가라하고 올라는 융바디 간저 레발이야 튀데요지. 현세 디디 콜이야 아니 단다 강다르 왕제 콜이야 왕제 말라 콜이야 아니 gel라 단다 간저 왕제 치리 gel라니기 아니 망아직 두르지 말에 캐란서 love grace. Yes.
So we did an exercise, just so that you know, we did, do you see on the walls, they have those decorations, the big pink posters. They drew outlines of their bodies, and then they colored on those outlines, they colored red, yellow, and blue for the 3 germ layers, the ectoderm, mesoderm, and endoderm. And so some of those drawings have a lot of yellow. Actually, Jillian, if you click and do the little 3 buttons, you can do a pin if you know how to make their picture bigger. I'm sorry, let me see if I can stop share. It will make it easier for you to see the posters. So do you see on the walls behind them, there's like a yellow one, that was the endoderm. So they drew the gut, lots of gut. And then the mesoderm, they drew the muscles and bones in red on some of these posters. And then they also have the ectoderm. And so I'm just going to remind the nuns that the ectoderm makes the whole spinal cord going all the way up, and the head as well, the brain, is all made out of the blue ectoderm in the embryo.
Yeah. 아니 단다 gel라니리야 디셰갸스와 디베게 피리 진저 가르치는 팀에 가르치 자료메로와 딩언저 다 강달 락다르 디 가르치메 디셰야 아니 아니라 솔이야 안 gel라이 가르치는 솔랑아 일라베다 단다 카싱 사병기 차봉 림부 숨직랍스와 디디 인 치신주와 치마주와 디기 에닝안조 빡바다 아니 왕자말라디 차기와디 셈낭에 고그레스 켄세 왕자말라 레바당 중바 yes.
Yes, it also makes the skin, which is why that blue picture looks entirely blue, because it makes the skin as well.
안에 단다 치바디기 다 끼모 수위에 성장 gel라 콘조 수행에 된 적이 창망 공부당도 수부 차장 공부당에 디김재원데 천차열스. Yes.
Thank you to the cameraman for showing us those.
니빠리 때 어떠셨어? Yeah.
Okay, so then I will go back and show you if something is disrupted about the way that we make the back to the front of our body, and it disrupts something, goes wrong in the signaling and the pattern that forms for the spinal cord and the brain. You can get like these babies. They have 2 heads and 2 spinal cords, but only the one bottom of their body.
따디디 당기 갈세디 яб니 듄세디 임바. 따디기 강다르 디기 갈세 제든 저기 갈세기 달라테니 아니 왕부 줍고 그러와. 차셰 로가 줍고라. 따디리야 툭 태베이나. 켄세 디리글야 툭 태베이나. 아니 보고 살롱 소연디 아니 노리딘데 쇼르고레스. 델야나 고니도 민고니에나 중바야니요레스. 얘네야 강바디 미직 마도 일레도마다 디엔디 칸달 제기 카르체일이야 퀘쇼르치니 켄세 제기 카르체기 토네 다용어야 될래야 아니 퀘쇼르치니 용고레스텔라. Yes.
And this boy, he has his head down to his spinal cord, but then an extra spinal cord that's coming out away from his body.
Spinal cord. Okay. 따디 양 디닝제 보델라 때베나 아니 고네 치네다 고랑기 용바치 차상전에 깡바디 차상직도아 얘네야 디초라 가지샤 용바 퇴외직기에지 해세.
Yeah, so disruptions in these gradients can have very serious consequences, cause a lot of suffering.
다디디 가르체디기 개발다 간다 건다 가르체기 다델레 텐치는 다 간다 꿰바지 좀 구르와 델리아 투시 테비나 아니 가족이 중대로 어디마서는 항상야기 첨부 연구열했어 꽤 첨부 연구열했어 엔디 때는 가족이야 딱 강에 망고시체대 야나 둥에 망고시 연구 그랬어.
Okay. So I thought you could try drawing a few of the gradients on the body. Just turn to your neighbor in the classroom and draw a little person on your notepad and try to draw some gradients onto that person and talk with each other about what gradients you think there must be in the body.
Oh, okay. 다 아니라 견절이라 최고직 체야더라. 저걸라네 다 내가 진시 하자라나. 결혼 안에 파츠 록바냠도 디진데 아니 록바디 리모 따리 록바츠에 기체도 미 리모 친지시티 아니 리모델이 야텐신 아니 카르체기 초도 마서네 딱 한달 제다도 마서네 카르체디 가기 초라 가와도고서레 삼삼로지야 땅 고니 강보바디 용시 딱 한달 예니 유니르스 딱 한달 델이 야텐신 데네로지 가가 용사레 삼네 리모디티다스. Yeah.
One of the ways to help you make these drawings, do you see how they made high concentration, looks like a triangle, high concentration, and then less. And you can do high concentration and then less. You can do it by the shape, or you can do it with your colored pencils. So you have pencils too. And then you would make strong concentration and then less.
Yes.
So I'm hoping you can draw some of, it's like a rainbow in the body, all these gradients. And maybe you can try to draw more than just one. Draw several onto your drawing.
Okay. 따디들와 아주 제기 가르체시에 떼기 쳐도 야나 삐리 딘들 베지타나 리고르. 켄세 디인디 신가 총으로 가르체 망사징니 용으로 해야래도. 아니 다나시 양 아주 단다 샤뉴기 춘도요와. 디 베지타나는 춘도랑 베지타네 춘도랑기 춘도네 리고르스. 다 gelagi 삐리 가래 레와치기라 나가주 수빈나리야 가르체기 삐리 디 자기 나가낭시. 자낭시 켄세 가르자 마사진이 토살레디 가르체기 딱 한달 갈세 뛰어기 쳐도 춘도 말아 비슷하나 아니 가서 자루 다랑신기 언제 지금 용하기 레와였어 아니 갈세에 나가 찌란직라 많이 봤다 한달 수고기 차시 가서 냈다 지니 갈세 뒤에 탑진 당셨어 현세. Yes.
So we'll just take a few minutes and you draw a small on your notepads, draw an outline of a little human body. Well, it doesn't have to be human, but let's do it with human body. And then draw the gradients onto it, as many as you can fit. And then show your picture to your neighbor.
Okay. 따디르와 결혼 속이 단기 라반당시 결혼 소리면 가서 지대 나올이야 안미 수부로 친지시티 강다 치 꿰봐줘라 미치 꿰봐듯이 안에 가르체 야나 사르체리야 켜봐 간데스 두고 메시지와 디기 안에 비리 나올이야 텐쇼스 결혼 가네 가와바도 사르체 디네지네 때나 너네들이야 용으로 줘서 용으로 삼삼로 결혼기 초 삼로 가네 가와 코르고도 델이야 시샤네 아니 티쇼스 망타지.
So don't forget, there will be gradients going down the limb and also in the hand, gradients going from the back to the front of the head, all kinds of gradients. See how many you can fit into your drawing.
다 사르체 디펜션은 락바 인바이나래 락바 잡니 뒤래 용초래 고 인바이나 고 잡니 뒤래 용초래 딱 한달 초 가네 가와 용초다 델이야 시샤니 결혼수 가르팅 가네 가와 티초도 언제 티쇼스.
Shall we take just 1 minute more? And then if a few of you would hold them up so the camera can show them. I'd love to see your drawings.
Ta kama chik dang lo ya juk duye che. Ani nganzo gi kashi ji nganzo tanda par kasa camera dang lo ya tuya tapsi chi skila ani tande pedus ra. So di karche di chundu peju dang ya nare yana ne sopta peju dang shla. Tenshu.
Okay, shall we see one of your drawings? Somebody stand up. If you are using rainbows, it is amazing all the different rainbows in our body, right? All the colors would start to mix together.
Tanga zo peri chik la tagin das ra. Chik tero chis. Ane kisi nganzo gin jagi na ba na shin te yo ba na subu cho ka khasa ne ane jagi na ba yunguru ta pen shi na goni ju ba goni me kang ba ba ni ba da ta kang da cho ka khasa ne jagi ndi pa zun de yong ai je yunguru es. Yeah, chik inda. Chik yue. Ani chik tunge. Yes, we got one volunteer
Okay.
here.
nga se remote de na leba gi remote leba gi soira leba gi sarche dingoni jena ani gola di pe serbo tang shaira serbo de ni karche leba yosala sarche manga dang ani dile nyuru dora di dangbo di remote dire ani ngo di je gola dangbo sarche de garche leba chola nyunga dang ani ma wala leba gi sarche di kangba chola manga dora di ani kangba chola leba de ni khoi kangba la sashara
Ale da di kisi truth he ben la yoro chita.
two regala
Ale oya.
dangbo sarche ngoni di leba chola ni sarche manga yora ani kangba chola nyunga gora tanga ani gari chelana ani ngasa desinge sarche di leba ki sarche dira ani gala di nyunga je ani kangba chola di ani leba sarche maru dora doni gawa dore na kangba la ani leba di kangba chola dore da
Oh yeah. So she has written about the gradient or the chemical concentration for the brain formation. So basically the chemical that will signal to form the brain will more toward the brain and then less toward the other part, like the down part. But then she also has written the possible disruption that happens, like in case the chemical that instructs to form the brain is disrupted in such a way that it is being found at the bottom, then she said the brain may form at the bottom side of the body. The disruptions that happens in the gradient.
Yes, actually people have seen that in the fly embryo. Remember I showed you that fly embryo. Let me share that picture with you for a second.
Tanda ani lagi nedang jik doa. Kesi dele ya ani color parche rochung sona ani leba chasal ya kangba chasal leba chaya ro dinde ji yungur la di ani yungu yores khonso gi tanda. Yeah, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, so exactly what she described. There's a high concentration at the head. It is even yellow the way she drew it. And then less. They have some fly embryos that have a high concentration at the other end as well. And then less. And those creatures would make like two heads.
Ta dinde gi truk te besh doa. Ta karse depend sheshna gonda kama chikwa. Tanda di budu jilia shishawe na di gonda di kare ane nganzo gi kale re fly
장마 릭지기라 창부레더라 뭔다 디 둠싱레더라 디 인디 따펜세스나 원 남기 윤데 제베나 딜야 제디 카르세 딜 망아세 세우시도 한다 아니 고데야 세우땅도 손도 찍고 자셨으라 따간다 딜야 제 카르세 망아제 디니마도도 요르라 디 인디 윤데 제베나 디낭라야 아니 고차 안델라 디 중마 당가마 쇼도 차고라 이네 네당 카세 나올야 델야 카르세 망고요 야 델라 인디네 초네야 di ngocha gi je di gi kharche di mang dine de chole ya mang bu che en nyor che di ne dang khashi nang lo li yang go ni yong e de thong yo res kese yes
go ma dum
So
ne
there are some flies that have two heads. You can also make them that have two tails and no head.
yang khashi lara ani danda khasa go ni chasa yang khashi la ani ngama ni chini ani bat korong go gor megyo chaye ne yong si res ani go ye bache
ra goi sarche de thu yo mara leba chik bo ki sarche thu ra ani go di rangja ke waje ani leba chik bo kang ba galan ke yor be
so she got a question she's saying that in case there's a disruption in the chemical gradient that will instruct only formation of the brain and not the head itself, would it be possible to have the only brain developed and the head to be developed in the normal position?
I'm trying to think if I've ever seen something like that. You mean like the skull bones? The bones would develop, okay, but the brain would not, or the brain would, but not the skull? I want to make sure I understand.
Ta ani gila di chiwa di tananga zung go yablo rugo jiwa. Ani samla taya le ya ani leba se di nanglo gi chache di che ani go se di ani di yabu ruba chikpu chikcha ani yang leba di shemba jikle ya cha gyo gi samla tangi wes chiwa di la.
leba lai di chidan dalin tesa ge ni dupcha de chidan rugo gi dubyo ra ine yang khora chama gi dalin lebsa di leba chik yore lagi ra oti da leba di ani go me na yang go me salar go di rangja dubba je ra khoti ani kangba di wala ke yore be la re din.
So she's saying the brain is the central nervous system, so where all the signals, passes through, right? So she's asking, is it possible to have that organ, the brain itself, to somewhere, and the rest of the head part, basically, in this normal position?
I have never seen that. Like I've never seen a picture of that for a mammal like us. I have seen some really dramatic changes for some other animals. Like I mentioned, like the fly or the worm, you can get some really dramatic, like two heads or missing head or move the head or and I've seen like for smaller parts, like the eye, you can get the eye to develop in the wrong place on the body. But I've never seen the brain, the whole brain, like our familiar mammal brain to develop in the wrong place like that.
Ta gela hirwa ani ngara so gi nang shi mi nang shi ta kan da mi ne re no so sim che din zo gi ring nang la ya ani lebas wang cha she shin ba ji li ya ge ge ne re ke thong yo mes jwa ta da ba thong yo mes ine gela gi sim che shin ba den nang la ya cancer den de chi gyo thong yo spen cha na tan de di do jangma ra jangma yin du jangma den nang la ya kha she go ni kha she kang ba ni an kha she ya mi pen cha na wang bu chin ju shin je mi ro cha sha na mo mi de la ke ya den de su bu cha she kense ta kanda jangma le ya kang ba ro ji yo bang zo di gi cha she de la ke ya den de ma to ji ge ani nu so sim je nang la ya bet le ba di shin ba ji le ke ya ji da den de ji and kala ta yuwa chim bu den de thong yo mes kense yes
Absolutely, you can get two heads. And you can get that. I have seen that in the frog embryos, and I've even made it in experiments with frog embryos myself with my own hands, doing little surgeries when I was in school. But normally you would get the whole head. Do you see, like these children have two heads, but it's the whole head, and actually they have the spinal cord too, coming down each of them. You don't have just the brain in a different place.
Ta de dirwa neda dine rojina takala orang azu goni dine yungu yores kense goni dine yungu yores ina yang leba koran chikpu jike dine yomares ta chang go chasang ji yo de kense de independence na dele na puni pu dele yang goni che ane yungba ya ni yungu do ra ine tanashi gelagi bekpa gi tanda dumsing yomare koran rangi taje che che ne ane goni yo da dine gang le yang ane shimju chinyo yes kense go chasang jing mo de leba jik po jing yang de ke de thonyo mes. Yes.
Does anybody else have a drawing you could share with us?
Pari shimba tenge yuwa. Oh yeah, we got one.
Okay.
I think hers is beautiful. Oh. Ya gila anila tis oh pege camera la. Tingin be. Camera focus chitu de ya lang malang na. Ale dixas oh. Anila mic nang lola dishes jagin be. Kagi peri de la dishe. No, jang da jeros. Oh ya to che.
안쪽에 되게나 삭제 딱다 드버티제라게나 아니 싱게디 고천제라게 아니 고라 아니 사제 망아지네 마마마제 강보초라 디스 사제 용어제라 예 여버지는 유인제 모세 맵지 아니 정구디 강보기 사제제라 강벌초라 망고지디네 디스 고여서라 유인지 아니 가래 직디 ngombu디 붕부기 사제제 아니 붕부여서라 망고지디네 락보 잠부도 유인지 아니 세부디 락보 도여기 사제지디네 델라 망고여지 강라 붕벌라 유인이 인디스
Ngobodi kharajile be.
Pungba.
Okay. Okay, so she has written a picture of normal gradient. So she said the pink one represents the head. So it goes like from head to toe, it goes like high concentration to low concentration. And that the green one is the leg one. So it has to like, it has the opposite direction, basically like high concentration and toward the down. And then as it goes up, the concentration decreases. And the hand, the yellow one represents the hand. So towards the hand, the concentration will be more. And then as we go, I think it comes toward the our body. Toward our body, the concentration decreases. And then the blue one is the shoulder part, the concentration that represents or signals the formation of shoulder part. And as from shoulder to the toward the outside, outward toward our body, then the concentration decreases.
I love that drawing. I snapped a photo of the screen so that I could save it. Thank you so much.
Gela parpe gason spinning jumudos chezang gela yoko de la parga wins and gela kora nyara yora screen gal parga is. Yes.